Morning, Harvey.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We got a few minutes and then we'll get started, okay?
No problem. I'm looking for something anyway. Don't know where it is.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I'm going to start with the sponsors and then I hope the other fellows will be on board by then. Okay, sponsorships, A Year of Learning by Dr. Paul Konigsberg in memory of his brothers, Dr. Sam Konigsberg, Shimon Ruven ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hersh ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bas Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov. A month of learning sponsored by Dov Bodlander in memory of his father, Tzvi ben Yaakov Yitzchak, his mother, Bela Devasha bas Harav Dov Ber, his father-in-law, Yehuda Tzvi ben David Nachum, and his mother-in-law, Alta Chaya bas Avram Yosef. Also a month by Mel and Haran Haller in memory of his father, Avraham ben Ze'ev. Then we have today a day of learning plus Torah Fund dedication. Sponsored by Ruth Kostman in memory of her mother, Sarah Bas Zalman. Also today, a day of learning sponsored by Pesha and Harry F. Tell in memory of her father, Chaim ben Moshe HaKohen, as well as by Charles Orgel and family in memory of his father, Nosson Nata ben Hillel. May the Neshamas have an Aliyah, Kranker Rafia, Velti Yeshir, and Chol B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shtiar. Sort of slipped up there a little bit. I apologize. Okay. I'm going to have us start actually on the bottom line of Lamed Amud Beis. Okay. right? And when the Gemara again was talking about a moving tent, a moving container, whether that was adequate or to provide protection from Tuma, okay, for the Kohen. So at this point, then the Gemara raises the question, V'hadatanya, what about the Braita that teaches as follows? Rabbi Yehuda, Omer says Rabbi Yehuda, and now we're on Lamed Aleph, right? Ma'arvin lekohen tahor b'truma tahora. Okay, that it's permissible to make a eruv for a kohen who is tahor using tahor produce. Bekever, hechi azil. But the question is, but in a cemetery, in a grave, how is that possible? B'sheidat teva umigdal. Okay, again, if he's in some sort of a carriage or a box or a cupboard, closet. Vaha kevan da'achta, says the Gemara. All right, and now, but the Gemara says, well, since it's got to be lowered, okay, in other words, if he's going to reach for the foodstuffs, okay, isn't he still then going to become tamei? Itamei la. It renders him tamei. Okay? Bishalo huchshara. So we say, perhaps in that situation, that particular truma was never had contact with any one of the 7 liquids that we say renders item tamei, and so therefore it's not a problem. O shenilusha b'mei peirot, or perhaps the bread, okay, rolls, whatever were needed using fruit juice and not water, for example, which would again, that liquid is not considered one of the 7 that renders produce, grain, tamei. V'hechi maitela. So the Gemara asks, okay, and how is the Kohen going to bring this produce to himself inside of the container? V'pshute kli eitz delo mekable tuma. Okay, simply with certain kinds of wooden containers, wooden utensils that he can utilize from inside where he is. All right, then they don't transmit, they don't accept a tumah. Vaha kama ahil, says the Gemara. But don't we say here that this is still also going to form a cover over the grave, right? Ohel over the grave. Damaite la achoreya. Okay, that actually, says the Gemara, maybe he's taking it using the edge of the wooden utensil, and therefore, in that case, he brings it inside the container and able to eat it. Ihachi, mai tama de Rabbanan, asks the Gemara. Right? If that's the way the Kohen is going to get this truma, okay, what's the rationale, the perspective of the rabbis? Kesavre asur leknot beit beisurei hana'ah. Okay? Why? Because the rabbis hold it is prohibited to acquire any place of dwelling, right? And that is what the Eruv designates, okay, when you're going to have Shabbat there, okay, in a place where one cannot get, as forbidden, certain benefits. Niklal the Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Mutar. Does this therefore seem to infer that Rabbi Yehuda says that it's permitted, okay, that that's the case? So the Gemara tries to answer. Kasava mitzvot lav lehanot ninhu. That's because Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that the mitzvot were not given for benefit, okay, to one to derive benefit from. Ella, rather, had amar Rabba mitzvot lav lehanot ninhu. But rather, it's according to the view of Rava, right, that mitzvot were not given to us for benefit. Lema kitana'ai amra l'shma'ate. Shall we therefore say then that this statement refers to some sort of Tanaitic argument that we have not come across yet. All right, and so the Gemara continues. Amar lach Rava. Rava would say the following to you, right? Is v'relaho da'ein ma'arvin ela ledavar mitzvah. If the opinion is such that one is going to think that one doesn't make an eruv except for the purpose of a mitzvah, okay? The kuli alma mitzvat lav lehanot nitnu, okay? Then everybody would agree that the mitzvot are not given for personal benefit. V'hacha b'hav k'miflegei. And this is what they're arguing about as we go on. Mar savar ein ma'arvin ela ledavar mitzvah. One master holds that one only makes a eruv to facilitate the performance of a mitzvah. Umar savar ma'arvin afilu ledavar harashut. And the other master holds that it is permitted to make an eruv even for something that is not a mitzvah act, but some general act, a discretionary act. Elaha, the Amar Rav Yosef. But what about what Rav Yosef says, said the Gemara? He said as follows, the Amar Rav Yosef, right? Ein ma'arvin ela ledavar mitzvah. According to Rav Yosef, one does not make an eruv except for the purpose of carrying out a mitzvah deed, right? Lema kitnai amra l'shma'ateh. Okay, shall we therefore say, in this case, okay, that right, that this is the example, that this is what he learned it for, that about this machloket of Tanaim. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara continues. Amar lach Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef, however, would answer, the kuli alma ein ma'arvin ela ledavar mitzvah. But Rav Yosef still holds, okay, that only do a eruv, okay, for the purpose of performing a mitzvah. Udekuli alma mitzvah lav lehanot nitnu. And everybody agrees that the mitzvot were not given for benefit. Ubaha k'miflegei. And this is what they're really arguing about. Okay? Mar savar kevan dekana le eruv lo necha le de mintara. Okay, that one master holds that since he's acquired, okay, he's made this eruv, it no longer needs any further kind of safeguarding. In other words, therefore, since it's not being protected, okay, he gets no benefit from it. Umar savar nechale demintara. And the other master holds, no, that once he sets up his eruv, it requires safeguarding. De'itz tarich achiyu le. Why? Because in that case, if he needs it, right, he can benefit from it from eating it. Okay, so the implication is here, right, so that there would not be a prohibition of the use of the grave, okay, to preserve the meal, okay, because that says that one would prohibit the eruv on the grave, right? Because if it's not protected, all right, if he holds it's not protected, right, the end result is he has no benefit. But if he holds it's protected, okay, there, okay, and that's the result, okay, he gets some sort of benefit, and that eruv then is prohibited. Okay, let's go to a new Mishnah. Okay. Matnitin, ma'arvin b'damai. Okay, according to this Mishnah, we can make an eruv with damai, right? Remember we said that damai is basically produce that is questionable in terms of its tithe status. Umaaser rishon, okay? And make an eruv using maaser rishon, okay? First tithe, right? Shenat la trumato. so long as the truma, okay, for the Kohen had been taken from it, right? Uba ma'aser sheni, and with a second tithe, v'hekdesh sheniftu, and also with sanctified produce that has been redeemed. V'hakohanim, okay, b'chala, okay, and one can even use the challah from Kohanim also for an eruv. Aval lo b'tevel, but one cannot use tevel, which is produce that we know for sure has had no tithe whatsoever taken from it. V'lo b'ma'aser rishon shelo natla trumato, and not with first tithe that hasn't had the truma for the Kohen taken for it. V'lo b'ma'aser sheni, and not with ma'aser sheni, second tithe. V'hekdesh shelo nifdu, or with sanctified produce that hasn't been redeemed. Okay? Now, Gemara is going to begin to clarify each of these examples. Demai, when we talk about demai, that the Mishnah permits it, ha lo chazile. Okay, don't we say that it's not suitable to be eaten? Because we have a question of whether any tithe whatsoever has been taken from it. Okay, migo the ibai mifkar laho lenichse. It's possible, says the Gemara, that since if he's really necessary, the individual can be mafker. He can give up all of his property. Okay, v'have ani, and he can become a poor person. V'chazule, and then we say that this demai is acceptable for him to eat. Okay, hashtanami chazile. Here too, okay, we can say that it would be suitable for him to be used as an eruv. Ditznan, because we teach elsewhere in the Mishnah, ma'achilin et ha'aniyim demai, that we can feed those indigent, the poor people, demai. Okay, and we go on now. Right, ve'et achsanya demai, and we can also feed, according to this Mishnah, the troops that are quartered in the town. Okay, all right, we can feed them demai as well. Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna now, okay, in the following Tana, but it was taught in a Braita. Beit Shammai omrim ein ma'achilin et ha'aniyim demai. According to Beit Shammai, we cannot feed the poor demai. Beit Hillel omrim ma'achilin et ha'aniyim demai. But Beit Hillel says we may feed the poor demai, and our Mishnah then must follow Beit Hillel. Okay, going now back to a statement from the Mishnah. Ubama'aser rishon shenatla chule. Okay, we were saying that ma'aser rishon, so long as truma has been taken. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Lo tzricha. No, it was necessary to specifically say it. Why? Shehikdimo, okay, and read into the word Levi at this point. Shibalim, that a Levi came and he came earlier before they gave the truma to the Kohen, and he took grain right off the stalks of the produce, right? V'natlami menu trumat ma'aser. Okay, and then afterwards, right, what happens? Okay, then he would have to give, okay, the trumas ma'aser, right? That portion that the Levi has to give to the Kohen. V'lo natlami menu truma gedolah. But the truma gedolah, in other words, the truma, the first truma, okay, right, was not done. Okay, ukeda Rabbi Abahu amar Reish Lakish. All right, and we say this is like the view of Rabbi Abahu in the name of Reish Lakish. The Amar Rabbi Abahu Amar Reish Lakish, who said as follows, right? Maaser Rishon Shehikdimo B'Shibalim, okay, that if one took the first tithe, okay, right, in other words, Maaser Rishon, okay, and the Levi came in advance and took the separation, okay, while the grain was still there, okay, on the stalk, so to speak. Patur mi truma gedola. Okay, according to them, he is exempt from truma gedola. Shene'amar, why? Because he cites the pasuk that says as follows, okay, namely, v'haremotem mimenu trumat Hashem ma'aser min hama'aser, and you shall offer up from it Hashem's truma, a tithe of the ma'aser. Okay? Ma'aser min hama'aser amarti lach. Okay? We're saying a tithe of the tithe is what the Levi has to give. Velo truma gedola, and not the initial truma to the Kohen. Utrumat ma'aser min hama'aser. Okay? And thus we see, okay, that in that case, right, the maaser, that the Levi only has to give, so to speak, his portion, and not the earlier, okay, if you will, portion for the Kohen. Okay. Okay. Right. Velo truma gedola or trumat maaser min maaser. Okay. Now Rav Papa is going to say has a problem with this explanation. Amarle Rav Papa Abai, and he says to Abai, Ihachi, if that's the case, afilu hikdimo bekari. Even if he comes, the Levi were to come, and take produce while they were still piled up. Okay, Nami, it would seem that he wouldn't have to be concerned about truma gedola. Amarle alayich amarkra. Okay, he says in response to that issue, I have a pasuk, okay, that clarifies, right? Mikol masrotechem tarimu et kol trumat Hashem. Okay, from all your maaser portions, you shall offer up all of Hashem's truma. Uma re'ita. Okay, so what do you see interpreting this pasuk? Okay, Hai idagan, v'hai lo idagan. Okay, that in one case we're talking about something that becomes grain, okay, and something else that doesn't become grain. In other words, if you're taking it from the stalks, all right, or the ears, whatever we want to call it, okay, it hasn't reached even the level of being considered tevel. It hasn't, so it's not really mature, I'll say, grain in that case. Okay, and so it's not requisite to take the tithing. Okay, a new piece from our Mishnah. Uma'aser sheni v'hekdesh sheniftu. Okay, again, we now see that refers to Maaser Sheni and consecrated produce that had been redeemed from our Mishnah. Okay, to use as the Eruv. Pshita, isn't that obvious? Lo tzricha again. No, we say it's necessary for the Mishnah to have told us. Why? Shenatan et hakeren v'lo natan et hachomesh. Okay, because maybe it's a situation, okay, where when he redeemed the produce, okay, all he did was redeem it for the equivalent financial amount, and he did not add the necessary fifth, okay, which is an obligation from the Torah to satisfy the redemption requirement. The kamash malan, the ein hachomesh ma'akev. But nevertheless, it comes to teach us that even if the chomesh was not added, it doesn't hold back from the use of that produce as eruv. Okay. About lo betevel, says our text, right? The next part of the Mishnah. Pshita, again, isn't that obvious? Lo tzricha. No, the Mishnah needed to say it. But tevel tavul midrabanan. Okay. Why is that the case? Okay. Because we're saying here that there's something unique about tevel. It's something that was required by the rabbis. And what was the situation? Ukigon shezar'o ba'atzitz she'eno nakuv. And it's like a situation where this was planted in a pot that was non-perforated. And since it doesn't really then come from the ground, okay, that the issue is therefore it is not subject to tithe. V'lo b'ma'aser rishon shelo natla trumato, and not with first tithe, okay, that did not have its truma taken. Pshita, again, isn't that obvious? Okay, again we say pshit lo tzricha. No, it was necessary for the Mishnah to tell us why. Shehiktimo b'kri v'natla mimenu trumat ma'aser. That again the Levi came earlier and took the grain from a pile. Okay, in this case it may have been threshed wheat. Okay, and what did he do? He gave then his trumas maaser, his required portion to the Kohen. V'lo natla mimenu truma gedola, but he didn't take from that produce the first tithe, the larger tithe that should have been given first, okay, to the Kohen, before the Levi gets his section. Mahu datema. So what are you coming to try to tell us? Amar le Rav Papa le Abaye, just as what Rav Papa had said earlier to Abaye, kemashmalan kedashani le, comes to teach us that that we get the answer that Abaye gave him earlier. Okay? Now, v'lo b'ma'aser sheni v'hekdesh shalo niftu, and not again using ma'aser sheni or consecrate property that produce that wasn't redeemed. Again, pshita, isn't that obvious? Lo tzricha. No, we need this Mishnah to say it. Shepada'an v'lo pa'ada'an kehilchatan. Okay? That we say it was redeemed, but it wasn't redeemed according to the halacha, according to the proper method. Ma'aser shepada'o al gav asimon. Okay? It was a situation where they redeemed this Maaser Sheni money on a unminted coin. Okay? V'rachmana amar, but we understand the Torah is telling us v'tzarta hakesef. Okay? When it means that you have to exchange it for the money. Okay? It means kesef sheyesh elav tzura, that it has to have money that has a form on it, namely some sort of image on the money to render it valid financial transactions. Okay, so the Gemara picks up then and says, Hekdesh shechilalu al gav karka, or we could say, what about the fact that it was consecrated property that was desanctified through use of land? Derachamana amar, but however the Torah tells us clearly, v'natan hakesef v'kamlo, okay, that one must use currency in order to redeem the hekdesh, and then it can become to him, okay? And that's how we finish that particular Mishnah, right? Now we go to a brand new Mishnah, okay? And, okay, so let's introduce this particular Mishnah by the following. Normally we would think that the person who needs to transfer his residence by setting up an Eruv might do it himself. Okay? Namely, he would take the foodstuffs, go to that location, okay, before Shabbat, put the foodstuff there, okay, and therefore that would be his transference of residence to be able to spend Shabbat there. In doing so, thus he has a new, so to speak, residence, and he has, if we're talking Erev Tchumim, so to speak, for the moment, an additional 2,000 Amma that he can go from that Eruv location. Okay? But what happens if I give my foodstuffs for the Eruv to someone else? Can they make the Eruv Chatzerot, or better still, Eruv Tchumim, can they make it for me without and do it for me? So our Mishnah is going to talk about this aspect, okay? And tells us as follows.
Rabbi,
Yes.
why wouldn't this have been a solution for the Kohen in the graveyard to send the Shliach to deposit the Eruv, who's not a Kohen?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, the implication though is still, wouldn't it be at some point, the person who wants to benefit from the Eruv, okay, must ideally make that location his, so to speak, Shabbos residence. Okay, and that's the question.
Right.
How, even if he's in the box, okay,
Right.
That was the questions they asked. So fine, that protected him from Tuma, from the grave. But
Right.
if the food stuff is sitting on top of a grave, how is it once he opens the, let's say, bottom of the crate and reaches down to get the food to eat, it becomes tummy.
Right. And even if a Shliach were to hand it to him, put it inside the box for him, would that be a problem?
That could be, okay? But the question, the implication is, would he need that Shliach there with him?
Right.
Okay? In other words, maybe he only utilized the Shliach because he knew that somebody was going to be, let's say, in that side of town.
Okay.
All right, that I want to, I don't know, go over to BRS for Shabbos.
Right.
Okay, and so I have somebody drop food off over there, and that's going to become my Shabbos residence. Okay, so that could be part of the issue. So the Mishnah comes back though and wants to clarify who might be eligible to act as a representative for the person to make the Eruv, right? Matnitin, our Mishnah says, Hasholech Eruvo biad cheresh shoteh v'katan. One who is to send or dispatch his Eruv, okay, by means of, right, somebody who is a cheresh, okay, who is deaf or deaf mute, shoteh, like somebody whose mental capacities are lacking, or a minor. And we know all three of these individuals it was not felt that they had the mental competence, okay, to carry out certain mitzvot. O biad mi she'eno modeh be'eruv, or he sends the Eruv in the hand of somebody who does not acknowledge the requirement of Eruv. Okay, now who might that be? Well, let's take a couple of examples. It might be a kuti, for example, right? It might be a tzeduki, for example. Okay, so those were individuals who, I will say, more or less were considered at some time part of the Jewish fold, but they never accepted completely all of the rabbinic requirements, of which Eruv was one. No Eruv, then it's not a valid Eruv, says the Mishnah. Ve'im amar la'acher lekablo mimenu, and if he told someone else to receive it from that person, okay? Again, I've got a son on the BRS side of town, and I told him, somebody is going to bring you some challah and wine and things like that, and I want you to get it for me because I'm going to spend Shabbos over there, okay? What happens? The kablo mimenu, hare ze eruv. That is then considered a valid eruv. So the Gemara asks here a good question. The katan lo, a minor no, why not? V'ha'amar Rav Huna, didn't Rav Huna say the ones as follows? Katan gova et ha'eruv. Okay? That, didn't he say that a minor may collect the food for the eruv? Okay? Lo kasha. It's not problematic. Kan be'eruvei tchumin, kan be'eruvei chatzerot. No, in one case, we're talking about eruv tchumin, okay? In another case, okay, apparently we're saying for collecting the food by the minor, that might be the eruv chatzeros. O biyad mi she'eno modeh be'eruv. So we come now to the second part. What do we mean by somebody who doesn't acknowledge eruv? Man, could that be? Amar Rav Chisda, kutai. It could be a kuti, right? Ve'im amar la'acher lekablo himenu harei ze eruv. But if we say to somebody else to receive it, then it's a valid eruv. V'lichush, let us suspect, dilma lo mamte le. Perhaps we're going to suspect that the person I gave the foodstuffs to bring to my son over in at BRS, maybe they're not going to deliver it. Maybe they're going to say, oh, look I got this nice challah rolls. I'm going to eat it on the way or something. I don't know. Okay? Lo mamtele, he doesn't deliver it, doesn't bring it. Kida'amar Rav Chisda, ba'omed v'ro'ehu. But then again, we see that's based on the question of Rav Chisda, who says that the person who should benefit from the eruv is standing and observing, watching his, let's call him shaliach, right, to carry out the act of bringing the foodstuffs. Hachanami ba'omed v'ro'ehu. Here too, shouldn't we be able to say it's a situation where he sees him, okay, stands there and watches him, okay? Now, Gemara has a problem with this, because if you're saying that you're doing this for Eruv Tchumin, right, and I'm going to tell this shaliach, put that foodstuffs 1,500 amma, okay, away from Century Village, okay. How is it possible to say that I could see him deliver it appropriately? Okay, and so the Gemara then says, "V'lichush dilma lo shakil mine." Perhaps he won't take it from him, right? In other words, he doesn't get it. Kida'amar Rav Yechiel, okay? In other words, maybe the minor is not going to deliver it properly, okay? And this then becomes based on what Rav Yechiel said, Chazakah shaliach oseh shlichuto. According to Rav Yechiel, that we have a chazakah, that a person given a mission normally fills it out, all right? Fulfills that mission. Hachanami chazakah shliach oseh shlichuto. Here too we say that he is going to fulfill his task, his mission. Vehecha itmar the Rav Chisda v'Rav Yechiel. Aha. And where is it, we ask, that Rav Chisda and Rav Yechiel say this about this issue? Itmar, it was said, to Tanya, that it was taught in a Braita, not no lapil v'holicho. Okay? If he gave a package that contained the foodstuffs to a trained elephant, lakof v'holicho, or he gave the package, okay, of the foodstuffs to a trained monkey, ein ze iruv, that is not considered a valid eruv. Ve'im amar la'acher lekablo himenu, and if you say to someone else to receive it from them, harei ze eruv, that then would make it a valid eruv. Okay? So the Gemara asks now, in regards to Rav Chisda and Rav Yechiel, right? V'dilma lo mamtele. Perhaps he's not going to bring it. He won't deliver it. Right? Amar Rav Chisda ba'omed v'ro'ehu. Says Rav Chisda, that's because the person who gave it, okay, actually is standing there and observing. Right? He's watching the animal, okay, and that's what makes it, so to speak, a competent, a valuable shaliach. V'dilma lo mekabel le'mineh, says the Gemara, but perhaps the person won't take it from the animal, right? Amar Rav Yechiel, chazaka shaliach oseh shlichuto. Now we have a general chazaka that something that is designated a representative fulfills his mission, carries out his task, right? So, Amar Rav Nachman, right? So, now having said this general principle, okay, we have a question raised about it. And we'll just do a little bit. Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, V'shel Torah. We're talking in terms of biblical law. Okay? Ein chazakah shliach oseh shlichuto. There, in regards to biblical law, we don't say that the shaliach fulfills his mission all the time. Okay? B'shel sofrim, if we go over just a little bit on the top, okay? But in regards to rabbinic laws, chazakah shaliach oseh shlichuto. We do have a chazakah, the presumption that the person will fulfill their mission. V'Rav Sheshet amar, okay? And Rav Sheshet says, echad zeh ve'echad zeh. Namely, Rav Sheshet says whether it's Torah law or rabbinic law, chazakah shaliach oseh shlichuto. We have a presumption that the individual is going to fulfill his mission, okay? And what happens? We're going to see that the Rav Sheshet, continues to justify his statement, and then afterwards he's going to be challenged. So we'll just continue just a little bit more. Amar Rav Sheshet, says Rav Sheshet, Mina Aminala. On what basis do I say this? Right, Ditznan, because we learned elsewhere in a Mishnah, Mishakerev HaOmer, right? Once it came time for the offering of the new grain, right? The Omer, Hutar Hechadash Miyad. Then the new produce was permitted immediately. B'harachokim, and those who lived far away, Mutarim Mechatzot Hayom, and they were permitted